the marketplace as it relates to really kind of data collection and really kind of what's the next evolution in terms of how we can best leverage the data to really kind of focus on member engagement and driving revenues for the clubs. So I'm going to kind of start this off by giving you guys just a brief background on who we are, and then I'm going to kind of get into the marketplace and share some thoughts with you in terms of where we think the market is at and where the market is heading. Real quickly on H2, basically we're a digital health company, and we've been focusing on delivering health engagement platforms for a lot of the leading health and wellness companies over the years. This ranges from some of the big box clubs like Curves, Lifetime Fitness, Fitness Connection, etc., as well as some very large companies like Atkins and Philips that have really kind of leveraged our solution in a similar manner. Really the premise is that the consumer is at the heart of the equation, and we need to continue to focus on these consumers to be able to deliver value to them. A couple of fast facts about us. So H2 Wellness, also H2 Fit, which is a brand of ours, was founded in 2005, based out of Los Angeles. We support approximately 4 million users in aggregate across our environments on our platform. So we've been around for a while. We've been able to touch a lot of consumers, and we've kind of seen, what's effective and what's actually not effective in the marketplace, and we hope to be able to share some of that with you. We currently have, integrations with 220 plus essentially devices. These are all the wearables, the scales, the blood pressure cuffs, glucometers, etc., as well as a lot of the major health apps that we are pulling data from. And our technology, we're built as a single platform, multi-tenant solution. We are a HIPAA compliant and ISO 27002 certified company. This is mainly because we have a background in the healthcare markets, and this has allowed us to bring essentially a highly secure solution to the health club market, which we see as a pretty major gap at this stage, because most of the players there are not fully compliant as it relates to touching personal health data. We really kind of focus on 3 markets in our business. One is the health club market, where we kind of focus on engaging members, personal trainers, and coaches around the consumer. In the population health market, we provide the same solutions to the corporate wellness market and the health insurance markets. And we also work with a variety of healthcare environments, whether these are hospitals, doctors, etc. And essentially, we like to be able to essentially share data between these environments to create a very holistic view of the member. Our solutions have been kind of leveraged and used in 15 countries under 9 languages. So we're able to localize and translate the system to be able to use the same solution to apply to different markets. Let's kind of move into the marketplace now in terms of kind of where we're at in the health club and generally in the digital health market. So the data here is not new to any of you guys on this call, obviously. When we started going down our H2 Fit initiative, we started doing a lot of research to see why do we have this high level of churn in the fitness industry that persists anywhere from 30 to 50%. And the biggest thing for us was low value perception, meaning the members came in with a certain level of expectations as to what they're going to accomplish as it relates to their health or weight loss or whatever their goals was. And after a few months of being there, they did not see those results. So they were disappointed, and suddenly those $20, $30, $40 a month started to feel expensive to them because they simply are not attending the club. Therefore, they wound up essentially canceling the memberships. Okay. So in terms of the kind of the major problem that we're focused on, and is a major problem really segment-wide across healthcare, is that at the heart of everything is really the engagement part, that we have to figure out ways to increase consumer engagement to be able to impact lifestyle behavior, which translates actually into retention and translates to more engagement of members. And this low engagement is hurting all the segments. It's hurting the fitness environment, the medical environment, the consumer weight loss environment. It's all the same thing because they go in for 60 to 90 days and they lose interest, okay, which then drives them out of your businesses. So one of the major things that we have learned over the past decade is that, healthcare truly should be a personalized experience. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Because just because two people need to lose weight doesn't mean that the same approach will be effective with the two of them, right? We have to not only understand each individual's health needs and goals, but we really have to kind of get into their minds to see, what are the barriers that are holding them back from achieving their goals. So the key thing is to be able to, understand who we're talking to, what their objectives are, and to really be able to drive the right guidance at the right time to the right person, to really create that personal touch and meaningful information to the users. So in the digital market, in the past couple of years, we have collected more data than we ever have in the history of mankind, right? It's getting to a point that we kind of don't know what to do with it anymore. So you guys hear the terms big data and, deep analytics, et cetera, that we're trying to tackle. We feel at H2 that we've kind of reached that so what moment. Another app, another set of graphs, another set of data points, does that really make you healthier? So when you look at kind of what's available now, we've got things like the EMRs and the medical world. In your world, it's really kind of the club solutions, the Motionsofts. It's that kind of have a lot of member data that is sitting there for you to leverage, right? We also have obviously tons and tons of wearable devices that on a continuous basis, we're getting new things released. Every week there's a new product coming out, there's a new device coming out. And they have not been shown to really impact long-term behavior yet. So there was a research done in 2014 that really showed that most people, more than half of the U.S. consumers that owned a modern activity tracker no longer use it. So the use case I like to use is really kind of Fitbit, right? I use my own Fitbit on a daily basis. I've been wearing it for 6 months religiously, okay? Problem is, the only interaction I get from the device is that I get an email when my battery is running out, and I get then it vibrates when I hit 10,000 steps. So the question we pose to ourselves internally is that, well, first of all, why 10,000 steps? If I'm a 400-pound diabetic versus somebody who's training for a triathlete, we cannot possibly have the same goal. Secondly is that, what happens to my data? What happens to my interactions between 0 and 10,000? So we really believe that we need to kind of understand where people are at, meet them where they're at, and then kind of focus on leveraging technology to drive messaging to them to get them to improve incrementally. So maybe you need to start at 4,000 steps and work your way up little by little to 10,000 steps. Next segment is the gamification area. So again, you hear about gamification, challenges, rewards, etc., and we have a lot of these solutions ourselves. But as a standalone solution, we have seen very little data in terms of them also impacting long-term behavior change because it's not tied to behavioral science, and also it doesn't resonate with your entire population. It resonates with a portion of the population. And then you've got all the mHealth apps, MyFitnessPal, Moves, all these guys, that they all have a great amount of value in terms of getting people more engaged in this world and getting them to see their data. But there's too many apps, there's too little interaction after a period of time. So, when we look at this and we look at kind of gamification, we showed very little adherence and kind of according to professional standards. And really kind of the main thing was there was very little elements of behavioral theory that has been actually applied to the game industry. Secondly, we looked at all the mHealth apps. And there was a research done by American Journal of Preventive Medicine that showed that most of the apps out there incorporate fewer than 4 principles or techniques that actually impact behavior. Okay? So really, there needs to be a shake-up. So this is kind of the first stage of where the market's at. But we really need to kind of evolve this to the next level. Okay? So really kind of, essentially, the gap that we see in the market that we're trying to solve for is to essentially create a unified solution where you can have as much of this data live under a single roof, right? So we can, get a complete picture of a consumer from a behavioral standpoint and from a health standpoint. But the most important part is what do you do with the data? How do you actually leverage the data to drive meaningful and personalized actions? How do you drive insights out of this and determine how to deliver something unique and meaningful to each person that is within your environment? So really kind of the purpose of H2, kind of just segue into kind of how we are seeing this and how we're approaching it, is that, we have essentially built this platform to focus on two things. One is the consumer, that obviously we have to increase their engagement and help them achieve their health outcomes. They have to optimize their health for them to stick to any program or any product, okay? But also we understand that these consumers live within the confines of a business, in this case, health clubs. And we have to essentially leverage that engagement to not only help the consumer, but to help drive also revenues and lifetime value for the businesses where we're accessing the consumers through, okay? Sorry, the screen froze. Give me 1 second. So kind of, what we've kind of made our mission is to really kind of essentially build and evolve an intelligent health platform that kind of focuses on 3 areas: technology, data, and behavior science. And we feel that the cross-section of these is the key to driving consumers back into the doors of your businesses and to keep them engaged with their overall health program. So as a solution, what we provide essentially is that if you look at this diagram, this represents essentially the health cloud that we have, right? Where we kind of integrate as much of this data as possible. This includes the Club OS systems like Motionsoft. This includes the devices. This includes assessments. This includes their check-in data for your clubs, what classes are taking, and all of this stuff is essentially analyzed by data scientists to determine what kind of relations and insights can we derive from this. So when a user comes through the system, now this will be tied to your environment, and essentially step 1 is to get as much data as we can. So again, Motionsoft data, health assessment data, if we have access to genomics or lab data from these consumers from the other environments, we try to combine all of that into one. The objective of that is to be able to understand and personalize an experience, okay? And the way we look at that is twofold. From a health standpoint, we try to identify what your macro goals are. Like, I want to lose weight and I want to improve the way I eat. Well, improving the way you eat is a pretty significant change in your lifestyle. And it involves a long list of habits that have to be changed. Either you eat too late at night, either you have too many carbs, either you have not enough protein. So we look at all of those as micro programs that need to be driven one by one. So we got to focus you on certain areas of your behavior and try to change those little by little instead of overloading a user by having too many things to tackle. The second part of this from a business standpoint is that we also personalize the business environment. So for example, based on your goals and objectives, we want to tie that in to the services you offer. Do you offer classes? Do you offer personal training? Do you offer massage? And depending on what my goals and objectives are, right, what is the right service for me at this stage of my program? Because it's not just digital, right? We want to leverage the community and the asset that you guys have, which is the brick and mortar side of it, to really create something much more meaningful, okay? And you have a variety of services that you offer that your members may not know about, or when they initially join the club, may not be the right solution for them at that time, but doesn't mean that it's not the right solution for them 3 or 6 months down the line, okay? So once you understand and personalize this experience, then we're able to essentially use the data to come up with these personas, right? Hal, the 41-year-old guy who's trying to increase his energy, improve sleep, and lower stress, right? So he would get his own unique solution. You've got now Stephanie, a 63-year-old lady who's trying to lose weight and manage her blood sugar, okay? So the point of it is that each one of these guys have to be treated differently, they have to be spoken differently, and there's a different tone and language that actually goes along with that, that we leverage technology to drive that, okay? And then really kind of the last part is the tracking of the data. So for us, the tracking of the data is a means to an end. And we focus as much as possible on passive data sets. The more we ask the users to do work on an app, the greater the drop-off rates, right? So that's why we have 220 devices connected to this. That's why we really care about the data that comes out of your clubs into our system. For example, we also geolocate every club and every location. So what that tells us is that when does a member go into the club? When does a member leave the club? How many times were they there this month, right? And all of these are relevant data points that we leverage to engage them. So what do we tell one of your members when they show up 3 times a week, the 3 times this week, versus somebody who hasn't shown up for 20 days, right? There's a different type of communication that needs to go out with them. The problem is today is that there's really no touch point with that person who doesn't show up, or even if they do show up, if they're not using personal training, there's very little interaction with them at the club level. And we need to find ways to bridge that gap to have a greater level of communication with them on the premise around improving their health. So this is just a high-level list of some of the integrations we have. I'm not going to spend much time on this, but essentially there's plenty of devices that are essentially talking to our solution at any given time. Okay, so essentially I just want to kind of visualize of what do we do with this data. So really, that in a nutshell, there's a level of data inputs that come into this thing that we call our rules engine. This rules engine is essentially a big data platform that sucks in data. It's got behavioral scientists defining parameters, and it's got data scientists coming up with insights around the data. So when these inputs come into this engine determines what I deliver to the user, okay, in real time. So whether that's a coaching message, whether that's a piece to say, go see a personal trainer, whether it's an article, whether it's a video, it doesn't matter. We've got a variety of libraries of content that we essentially drop in here, but every user that goes in here gets a different experience because there are different people and they have different motives. And this is essentially delivered through both a desktop and a mobile application that essentially looks at your data, drives a personalized message or piece of content around that to engage you and make you understand what your data means. So going back to the steps example, what does it mean if I do 7,000 steps, right? Is that good or bad? Maybe it's great if I was doing only 3,000 steps a month ago, okay? And at this stage, where the market's at is there's just a lot of ambiguity for the consumers because we're just saying, wear a device, use an app, track data. Most of them do have no idea what any of this stuff means and how to actually leverage this, okay? And so really kind of in the health club world, again, just kind of reiterating this fact, is what we're describing. So the member data comes in from a variety of sources, the OS, the class signups, the club check-ins, whether they're with a personal trainer, the purchase history. All these things are very meaningful to us because if we see what tier of membership somebody has within your club, and if they're buying personal training, we can analyze their spending habits and determine who's likely to buy more stuff, okay? So this really kind of goes into our cloud, and we drive in both health and commerce opportunity recommendations around this to drive their health programs, okay? And we already talked about this, so I'm not going to spend time, but we talked about the macro goals, breaking down into these kind of micro actions and then driving essentially lifestyle change and habits around this, okay? So in terms of kind of some of the screenshots that I can show you guys, and again, if any of you guys are interested, we can set up a demo at some point to do a more detailed plan, but I want to just kind of show you what we mean by these personalized plans. So when we talk about these kind of overall goals, these macro goals, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to increase my vitality and energy. You know, they're very vague, right? They don't really mean a whole lot until you start breaking them down to say, what do you do over the next 7 days? Or what do you do today? And focus on that. And when you might make improvements around that area, we'll give you more to digest. So this is what our health feed really looks like. So we talk about things like nutrition. We have a full fitness component that essentially allows a personal trainer and a member to work together. So they can essentially create full-on programs where they can adopt your club's programs and assign it to their members. They can modify it, they can keep it the way it is, and they're able to essentially assign a program to the members. They're able to essentially work together and track them on their mobile apps, whether I'm with a trainer or whether I'm not with a trainer, right? And the point of it is to kind of create a solution that that trainer now has a relationship at a much deeper level, because at the end of the day, a very active member at your clubs is there 3 hours a week, right? What happens to the rest of the time? And we really need to kind of, in our opinion, is to really focus on not just when the members are inside the club, but when they're outside the four walls. And how do we create a continuous experience so the health club is just a part of my health program, okay? This is an example of kind of how we leverage our engine to make product recommendations. So some of you may want to recommend classes, personal training, supplements, shakes, and what this does is that based on kind of what you're inputting, we can make essentially personalized recommendations around what to buy. I'll show you a case study later on in terms of the impact we've had with this type of a solution to significantly lift product and supplement sales. Okay, so this is really kind of, I'm going to click through a lot of this very quickly now, but essentially the health feed is your command center. This is kind of the communication center that takes the information from your coaches or trainers from the system and delivers it to you in a meaningful way. Okay, so you'll see that if a trainer speaks to a member, we can have their picture actually pop up in my experience as a member. So now the member sees the trainer's picture, the trainer sees the member's picture, and there's a deeper relationship between them. Okay. In terms of the health coach, I'll show you a couple of screenshots in terms of what your coaches get to see. Okay, there's the full-on secure communication channel now that you can leverage things like text messaging, email messaging for you to have secure communication between your members and your trainers or your coaches. Okay, I'm going to skip through some of these. There's also a set of essentially community type of tools where there's communities, there's challenges, etc. as part of the solution. And this is kind of the dashboard of a summary of some of the trackers. Now keep in mind, the way the system is structured is that different people would get different trackers because again, the entire premise is around personalizing the experience. If I am not, for example, trying to improve my mood or energy, I may not get a mood and energy tracker as the default recommended set of tools. I can always go back and turn that on if I want. But the point of it is that we want to kind of eliminate the noise so you don't have 100 different trackers to use, but you have a very targeted set of actions that you're focused on to actually improve upon. Because when you show consumers these small wins, our data has always shown that when I start seeing improvements in little things, I'm drinking my water every day, right, for 3 weeks. That now shows them, the consumer, that this is working, that they are starting to improve in one small area of their health. And this now creates a long-term relationship, right? The mistake that is always made is that we go to a doctor and they say, you've got high cholesterol, go and improve your nutrition, go exercise, go manage your sleep, go manage your energy, go manage your stress, starting today. And that's simply not feasible. So the member goes, I'm excited. On day 2, they say, I don't know what to do. It's too much. So this is just some examples of kind of how we can kind of leverage the data now to show them their data, to leverage that to drive coaching, to possibly drive commerce. So imagine this use case here. If you have your members that have tied their Withings or Fitbit scale to the solution, and they're losing weight in the first 3 months at your club. So they may come in and lose 10 pounds, and they may lose connection with you. They may stop coming, right? Well, that scale continues to stay connected to our environment. And when that person starts gaining weight again, right, they go up another 5 pounds, they go up another 10 pounds. We have different algorithms that determine what do we do with that person. When this person gains 10 pounds, do we notify their trainer if they had one? If they didn't, do we notify somebody at the club? Do we go to them directly? So these are all essentially re-engagement and retention opportunities that you're able to catch someone before it's too late. Okay. So same thing with activity. So I mean, I'm not going to bore you guys with going through this over and over, but the point of it is that this is how we focus on leveraging the data to make the data meaningful and actionable for someone. Okay. So I'm going to skip some of these. I've just got a few more screens to show you, and then I would like to kind of focus on kind of the Q&A to do this. Now, these next couple of screens are essentially the coaching dashboard. So what this allows you to do now is that all the data that is being collected, we now provide a dashboard for your trainers. For your trainers to be able to go in, look at their members, look at some high-level data to see, where their deficiencies are, where they're excelling, right? And you can actually communicate with those members individually or in bulk. So they can actually go in and say, hey, I have an interesting article this morning. I'm going to take all my members at this location, and I'm going to send one message or one article to all of them to basically show them something about this. So this is how we can kind of go. We have a digital component that is automatically doing things, and then your coaches or your company can actually leverage us to communicate with them at a different level around their health. Now, when you click on a member, you get to now see a very deep level of data on them. You get to actually see all the things they're tracking, what are their trends, where can you help them. At the top, you'll see the navigation here. You'll see the navigation where you can show them, you can look at their action plans, you can look at all their different health assessments, their park cues. So you can actually digitize all of your member intakes, if you don't already, and have it live in a secure place that we can actually leverage and perform analytics on it to make sense of it. Okay, and they can see all kinds of trends and data points. You can actually map different things against one another to see, is there a correlation between activities and stress, for example? Okay, so these become really powerful when your trainers can be on the floor with a tablet, for example, and they can be with a member and they can show them this, and they can have a discussion around it to have a meaningful impact on what they're doing. So this is really what we mean by kind of taking data to the next level now, that essentially to be able to leverage it digitally, to be able to leverage it, to leverage live coaches, because one of the things that we've learned over the years is that when we combine a digital solution like what we have with real people, with live coaches, the level of engagement goes significantly higher. It becomes a very powerful combination because the digital kind of does the busy work and the coach creates the accountability and the expertise to help. Okay, so just two quick case studies, and then I'll kind of hand it off to Todd to start fielding questions. So this is an example of what we did in a big box health club chain. This is one of the top 5 chains, and we dropped in a solution where we gave a very elaborate health questionnaire. We kind of learned about the users, and then we started kind of leveraging that data to make recommendations around products, services, and programs. So we actually kind of built programs and combined the products into it. So when we went in, they were doing very little sales of products because they basically had a wall of supplements and shakes and bars, and nobody knew why to buy something, what it's good for, how it helps them achieve their goals. So once we kind of helped educate them on that, this started kind of driving their supplement sales, and this led to a 178% increase in product sales within 12 months. Okay. The next case study is in essentially a corporate wellness environment where we did a obesity study. We went with one of the top 5 insurance companies, and we did a study where we combined our solution into a population of people that had a BMI of over 30. Okay, we put them on a 90-day weight loss. We provided one population with all the solutions in terms of a coach, a trainer, food products. Population B got all of that plus the digital solution. We created an engagement environment for the coaches and the members to communicate. Okay, the population that had a digital solution as a part of the overall environment basically was able to obtain double the weight loss, or an average of 29.6 pounds in a 90-day window. So the point of it is that this creates a lot of opportunities, not just to launch a digital solution, but to really figure out how do we leverage this to drive retention, how do we leverage our current coaches and employees to launch a deeper coaching program potentially, where we can leverage, let's say, dietitians and trainers to be able to sell new programs into your clubs, where these are now coaching programs the members can be a part of. Okay, and for those of you that have a focus around commerce, let's say supplements, devices, etc., how do we kind of make personal recommendations that are meaningful to them instead of just sending them to a website and hope they find what to buy? So Todd, I'm actually losing my voice, but this is kind of the last slide, and I want to kind of, I think, spend a little more time on any Q&A. Address questions as we throw them out at the people.
Oh, that'd be great. Human, thank you so much for your presentation. Attendees, this is your opportunity to ask Human your questions. Let us know what you need. And I'll kind of kick things off here for our attendees while they're composing their individual questions. How do I get started as a club owner or operator? What's the best way for me to leverage H2 within my club?
Yeah, so the first thing we do is to try to kind of get a deep understanding as to, what are the current offerings in your club and kind of assess, where is the greatest opportunity to be able to engage and grow the business. Okay. The solution is built essentially as a turnkey solution with some configuration options in it. So meaning that time to market is fast. It doesn't require a significant investment up front to get the solution ready. For us, the focus is to partner up with the clubs and essentially to leverage what we know works to be able to essentially drive your members to engage at a deeper level at your club. Okay, now in terms of really kind of from a, meats and potatoes of it, is that we pre-integrate with all the major operating systems. So in most cases, that's already done. So for example, Motionsoft is a partner of ours, and we basically have integrated with Motionsoft. And if basically whoever decides to engage on this, it's a matter of really just kind of lighting this up, and this will be automatically connected to your.
What about my members? Once I get a physical activity tracking platform in place, how do I reach out to my members to get them to start using the solution?
Great question. So the operating systems provide us with member information. So we're able to get names, emails, some demographic information on your users. And essentially, we collaborate with your marketing department to determine, what's the best way to do an outreach, But typically, there's obviously a digital element to that in terms of us kind of marketing the solution to your members. This is something that we collaborate with every club to see whether, we want to create assets and whether you want to send the messages or whether we should send the messages, so we're flexible on kind of how that's done. The onboarding is very simple. Members simply get an email with a claim code that is specific to your club. Once they enter that claim code, they're now a member. Whenever they log in, they're going to see your logo as a part of the solution. They're going to be tied to your locations. Your trainers can have access to their data. And in terms of kind of going back to the marketing of it, it really comes down to kind of how deep we want to go, whether it's a pure digital marketing initiative or there's also some, let's say, print elements for us to kind of get the word out in your locations.
So can my members go to my website and log in that way, or is there an app that they can download and utilize as well?
It's both actually. So they can go download the app, but the system would need to send them an invitation to ensure only your members are getting access to that. So there's a confirmation step that happens to make sure that we associate the right person with the right member.
And as a club owner, just kind of thinking out loud here. I mean, what department is going to generate the most growth from utilizing a solution like H2 Wellness's physical activity tracking platform?
So it comes a little bit down to the club, essentially, right? So we have a very specific personal training module that is a professional grade PT app that is built to drive more personal training. So definitely from a PT standpoint, we can make an impact to be able to essentially really create a deeper connection between member and trainer. But really kind of the blue waters is the 85 to 90% of your members that are not as engaged, right? We all know the 5 to 10% that use personal training are probably highly engaged, but really then there's about 80% of these members that show up occasionally, and in most cases in clubs, we don't see an elaborate health and wellness program offered to them for them to use. It's really typically go to the club and work out or come but pay for personal training. And there's very little offered aside from that.
Now, using the physical personal training example. So I'm working out with my personal trainer. Do they have the ability to upload the type of exercises and the repetitions or number of sets that I did?
Yes, so each club and each trainer has flexibility to actually drop in their own database. So what happens in some cases with the clubs that have their own approved set of programs, we actually configure that for you, where we essentially drop your exercise list, we drop in your programs into the system, and then you can decide whether you want to only make that available to your trainers or you also want to make that available to your members. Okay, then the trainers have full access to that library. They can use that library to either assign it the way it is, they can modify that, or a trainer can actually go from scratch and create and name their own programs and give it to their members. So that's one of the areas that we have not taken a position on because you guys do fitness best. And we basically leave that up to each club and each trainer to determine what they want to recommend to their members from a fitness and training standpoint.
Attendees, this is your chance to ask Human your questions directly. Please use the question interface inside of the control panel to compose your questions for Human. While we're waiting for our attendees to pose questions, I'm curious, Human, just ballpark pricing. What are we looking at? Say I've got 10 locations, and let's say I've got 2,000 members per location. What am I looking at for just a ballpark price, and how do you price your services?
Well, we have different revenue models, and this is more of a case-by-case basis. So in some environments, we have basically a licensing structure that essentially the clubs can come and basically we like to kind of focus on a member level versus a location level typically, because our focus is to drive value at the member level, okay? And in other environments, we also have revenue share models, and they're basically where we can actually bring in new revenue channels, such as, let's say, coaching, and leverage the technology with that, and essentially not only not charge the clubs, but actually bring in a new revenue stream into the clubs.
Excellent, thank you. What do club owners and operators need to be thinking about as they prepare to implement this type of solution?
Really kind of the main things that from a technical standpoint, there's almost nothing for the clubs to do. Basically, this is kind of a self-setup system. The main thing that is important for the success of the program is for leadership and senior management to really buy into this thing, to basically help us promote the solution, and to essentially to really focus on kind of making this part of the offering, especially when it comes to the personal training aspects of it, for this to really become the solution by which the personal trainers run their business, because this is now allowing the clubs to get data that they could never get before. Okay, remember, so the way we look at data is that we have multiple tiers. We've got data at the member level, then you've got above them trainers that can look into member data. Above that, you've got then a location that can look into location data. And then from the operator standpoint, you guys can actually get full insights into your business. You can see which trainers are performing at a higher level, which locations are getting better results, which members are happy and not unhappy. So essentially, this is something that, the reason we say we go in with a revenue share mindset in many of these cases is that we essentially assume some of the risk because we believe in what we're doing, okay? But that also requires participation from the clubs to really want to kind of adopt this thing and really help their own business and help their members along with this. But from a technical standpoint, there's almost no load on any IT department from implementing something like this.
And what about keeping my distinct culture and uniqueness? Are there ways for messaging or visual displays to carry our branding?
Yeah, so basically we do some branding on the system, and then really kind of the uniqueness comes in from the specific things about your club, right? So now your club data is flowing back to the member. So for example, we use their number of times they come to the club to coach them further, right? They now have a direct connection with their trainers. So again, the focus is to make this a part of your environment, and that's something that we leverage. But we also want to maintain H2 as part of the brand, because the reason being is that we want your members down the line to be able to connect their physician data to your clubs, right? If you imagine where the market's headed, right, is that once you have so many apps in the marketplace, pretty soon what's going to happen? You're going to offer a solution to your members. Their employer will offer a solution to the same person, and their doctors may offer something to them. So what we really are focused on to essentially become that ecosystem, because we operate in all these different verticals, because the consumer is what the focus needs to be on. And that consumer, by them having a richer experience and having your data along with their doctor data in the same place, it becomes a very sticky piece, because that becomes essentially the global health record, and the club record is really kind of part of the health record.
Oh, thanks, Human. Attendees, last chance here to ask any questions for Human. Human, maybe some key takeaways here. What do you want attendees to walk away from after hearing this session today? What's kind of the big takeaways for our session?
I mean, really the big thing is that, in terms of whether it's H2 or another solution, basically, the digital solution, if you guys don't already have one, is something that's needed because, consumers are demanding that, they're looking for it, and by not offering such a solution, it just gives them another opportunity to go somewhere else, essentially, for them to get another solution that may drive them elsewhere. Okay, so that's really one thing. The second thing is that, the data thing, and I don't like to use the term big data because it's an overused term, but really is that it's not just from our standpoint, from a behavioral standpoint, but really from the standpoint of really driving your business. With the amount of data that you have access to, you need to start leveraging this data in a much more meaningful and richer way. Whether it's for you to understand who are your high-risk members that are going to leave in the next 90 days, whether it's from the standpoint of what type of marketing messages will drive what type of a solution. The hard part is kind of done. Essentially the data is where the pipes are right now. So the pipes are now connected to everything, to the consumers, to the devices, and to your clubs. Now it's a matter of whether we're going to leverage that data to drive your businesses or not. That's really kind of what we're focused on right now. Because to us, as far as getting data from a Fitbit, that to us is a commodity. Anybody can go get that data at this stage pretty much, right? The key thing is the people that are going to win the game is the people that now use that data to use the insights to actually drive something towards your KPIs.
So now I'm going to have more data to work with. What systems or processes or communications might I need to create to support all of this new data that's coming in? Does your system have pre-designed messages that I can tailor myself?
Yeah, so basically, we're a fully cloud-based solution. So everything is hosted on our environment and Amazon, and that environment has been audited and is fully secure. So now, all that data and all that analytics essentially is something that we perform and we make available to you through a business dashboard. So your trainers get to see their members, but the operators get to see a business dashboard that really allows them to get a much deeper sense as to what's happening inside these clubs.
Awesome. Well, Human, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been an enlightening session on moving beyond physical activity tracking. And I want to remind our attendees, you will be receiving an email with a link of this recording and presentation. On September 13th through 15th in Baltimore, Maryland, will be the start of the Motionsoft Technology Summit. If you're interested in attending the event, you can drop me an email and we'll go from there. This will conclude our webinar for today. Thank you for joining us. And Human, thank you for being our guest speaker today.
Thanks, Todd.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.